So hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Again, as last time, we are back with the second part of our series of new features of Resco Mobile CRM 7.2. My name is Juraj Mojik. I'm one of the developers here at Resco, and some of you might know me via email or via the support or via conferences and trainings which I do, so then you know me in person. Currently, all of you are muted, so there is no way how you can speak to me. You can only hear my voice. But at the same time, there is the GoToWebinar application where you can ask your questions. So feel free to write your questions into the GoToWebinar window, and I will try to answer them at the end of the webinar if there is time, or I will answer them later via email after the actual webinar. This webinar is being recorded, so if you are interested in getting the recording or the slides which I will be using later, then feel free to send us an email, or you will get an email after the actual webinar. We are trying a new feature today of the GoToWebinar. It's the polls. Actually, I'm launching the polls right now, so there are two polls which will be available. The first one is about the features which you have seen or which you will see very soon, and the second one is, let me see if I can start that one as well. Okay, I don't see that I can enable that one. So in this one you can vote which features are interesting for you from what you have seen so far, and select what you are interested in. Okay, I think we are ready to begin. So I'll start with the actual agenda. And the agenda for today is as typically starting with a quick overview of Resco Mobile CRM for those of you who are just starting with our solution, and then I'll continue with the new features of version 7.2, which is currently the latest, so the one which you can get from the app stores and marketplaces right now. Which features I will go through today? It's SharePoint integration, so a very interesting feature for a lot of you. Additional filtering for associated views and lookup fields, and this one sounds a bit clumsy, but in fact it's a very elegant feature, how you can simplify some tasks which you probably do with the Woodford customization tool. I will also show you how to copy attributes from related records, and this is a built-in feature for the sales entities. And finally, I will go through the HTML5 charts, so the way how we present the charts in the latest version. So let's start with a quick overview of Resco Mobile CRM, which is online and offline mobile solution for Microsoft Dynamics CRM. We have great user experience and consistent UI on all the platforms, and this one has been improved in version 7.2 as well. There are customizations which you do without coding using the tool called Woodford, and you will see that one a lot today. These are the platforms that we support, the mobile platforms. Of course, the major ones, iOS, Androids, both phones and tablets, as well as Windows phones and Windows even desktop versions. The Woodford configuration tool looks something like this, and I think you will be much more familiar with it after today. Let's take a closer look at Resco Mobile CRM version 7.2, which was released on 25th of June 2014, so something like a month ago. There are quite a lot of new features, and we can divide them into a couple of categories like documents and images, design improvements, improvements in business logic, platform-specific features, and synchronization improvements. The ones which are underlined are the ones I'm going to go through today. But if you are interested, for example, in copy and paste support for attachments, chat with multimedia support, resizing of images, or even color theming, I would advise you to check the previous edition of my webinar which contain the first part of the new features of Resco Mobile CRM 7.2. If you're interested in that, just hit us an email and we can make available for you the recording of this webinar. So I think we are ready, and I will start with the first feature I want to go through today, which is the SharePoint integration. We are quite excited about this feature because it's a big, huge improvement of using mobile CRM in scenarios. And as usual, this was a feature which was requested quite a lot by you, our partners and customers. The important thing which you need to know about SharePoint integration is that we rely on the dynamic CRM SharePoint integration. So this has to be enabled on the server, on this dynamic CRM server in question. So let's take a closer look on the actual SharePoint integration. So as I have said, the SharePoint integration with mobile CRM uses the SharePoint integration which exists on dynamic CRM. So this has to be enabled and configured on the server in order to use it. Currently, we support the on-premise installations of SharePoint, and the online support is coming in next version. We have already implemented that for some platforms, and we will be adding all the platforms in the release 7.3. As usual, with new features in Resco Mobile CRM, the setup in Woodford is actually very simple. You just enable in mobile project this feature, and then maybe if you need, you can set some URL mapping. I will show you that in a second. Once you have this feature enabled in Woodford, then the setup is very simple. Just add a SharePoint documents list on a form, as you would do, for example, for notes or attachments. The documents can be stored locally and offline. This means that similar to attachments, also SharePoint documents are downloaded to the mobile device and stored there. And I think that this is a very important and actually quite critical feature of the SharePoint integration in mobile CRM. Also, the limitations for attachments apply. So if you in setup set the max attachment size, you will see that this will also be applied for SharePoint. So if there are larger attachments than a certain threshold, then a certain file size defined in the setup, then these attachments or these SharePoint documents will not be downloaded and will be downloaded only on demand. Actually, right now there is no sync filtering for SharePoint documents available, and also no SharePoint metadata. But I am assuming that this is an important part of SharePoint, and this will come very soon. So I think it's time for the SharePoint integration demo, and I will start actually with showing you the setup in CRM. So as I said, you have to have in CRM you have to have the SharePoint integration enabled. So when I go into settings and into documents management, you can see that I already have here the SharePoint sites. If I click on that, you will see that I have already my SharePoint site configured and set up here. If I go back to the documents management and check the SharePoint document locations, you will also see that there are already some active document locations present here. So that is the setup on the server. So please note that you have to have SharePoint integration enabled on the server, and then you can enable it on for the mobile application as well. So I will now switch to our configuration tool, Woodford, and I'm connected to the very same CRM server, and I will create a new project. Let's call this one SharePoint project. I will select system administrator because that's my role, but as you know, you can select different roles here in this list. Okay, my new project is being created, and now I will open it. Typically, as with any new feature, you can find it here in the project menu on the left. Now we have a new section called SharePoint, so I will select that one. Again, there are some warnings here that it has to be enabled on the dynamic CRM, but now I want to enable it for the mobile project I have just created. So I will select Enable. In many cases, this is sufficient and this is all you have to do, but sometimes you also want to set the URL mapping. So what this means that if you are using some internal URLs in the SharePoint or in CRM to point to certain documents, then you would need to set up to which actual external IP address this will be mapped. So in our case, we are using something like SharePoint 2013 as our internal address. So this is what we use. But because I want to access it from a different network, I have to provide the actual address of that server, which is something like this. Okay, so for the SharePoint integration to work correctly, in my case, I have to set that this address will be in fact translated to this address. Okay, my setup of the SharePoint integration is complete, so I can hit Save. And now I can set up where I want to have the SharePoint documents available within the mobile application. So I will go into the Accounts, into Forms, open the Edit form. And since I have enabled the SharePoint integration, now I have a SharePoint document list available here on the right. So I will just drag it and drop it onto the Account Edit form and save and close this form. I can do the same thing for the contacts, so let's go here and place the SharePoint documents as well, and basically for any other entity that I have. Okay, that's all I needed to do in the Woodford, so I will publish the mobile project and start sharing of the screen of my mobile device. Okay, let's give it a sec. Okay, I think I have to do the same thing as last time, and instead of showing you the iPad screen, I will show you the Windows 7 application. So now you should be able to see it, and I will write here the address of our CRM server, and here I will write my username and the password. Okay, the synchronization seems to be in progress. And now you can see it's synchronizing the SharePoint documents as well. Okay, application was updated. That's a good sign. So let's take a look at that. So right now, it should download the SharePoint documents existing and defined for the accounts. Let's take a look at that. So for example, here on the Resco ints, when I hit Edit and click on the SharePoint documents, you can see that there are already some documents like PDFs, PNGs, and documents. X files. When I open the PNG file, you can even see that the document is there. There is the image, the SharePoint document. And when I do the same thing, for example, for the brochure, you can see that right now the document isn't actually there. The thing is that it has quite a big file size. It's more than 2 megabytes of data. And the reason for that is here in the setup. When I check my field max attachment size, it's defined only 1 megabyte for attachments. And as I said, this setting is applied also for the SharePoint document. So if I go back on the accounts and on the Resco Inc. and hit the edit form and check the SharePoint documents, this document has 2 megabytes and therefore is not being downloaded automatically. But if the users want to see this document, they just have to click download, and this will initiate additional download process just for this one document for this particular one. Okay, let's try a different thing. And instead of just showing the existing documents for SharePoint which already being there, I will create a new account. Let's call it new account. I will not fill in any of the remaining details, but I will just hit save. And now I will go on to the SharePoint Documents tab. And when I hit new, it will ask me to create a new document location in the SharePoint. So it already knows that it has to create a new document location in the SharePoint. So I will hit yes. And right now I can just start adding documents. So for example, let's choose a picture and let's go for, again, some nice barcode. Let's save it. You can see the name here, the file size here as well. And let's prepare for the synchronization. Now, just before I sync, I will switch back to the Internet Explorer. And I will select this SharePoint site. So basically, I'm here on my SharePoint, and here as you can see, I have selected, okay, let me just refresh this. Okay, I probably will have to provide the IP address as well. Okay, I have to log in. Okay, so I'm here back at my SharePoint, and here I have my accounts. So here are basically stored all the documents or the SharePoint documents for all the accounts. If I want to see different documents, here you can see for each of the entity a folder, but I'm already okay with my accounts. Now you can see that here are the existing documents. If I go to Resco Inc., you can see that here are the actual documents which we already seen. So now I will go back into my application and initiate the synchronization. And you will see that a new folder will appear soon here in the accounts, and it will contain the document, the PNG file which I have created. Okay, the synchronization has finished, so let me refresh this. And now you can see that there is a folder, new account, for the new account which I have created. And if I open it here, you can see that the barcode image is actually present there. So let's get back to the presentation and let's continue with the next feature which I have prepared, which is actually not that easy to explain, but I will try anyways, and I hope that you will get it very quickly. So when you are defining a filter for a view in CRM or in Woodford, you usually have to create a new view for that. Obviously, that's very typical how you have to do it. But right now we have decided that we will make it quicker for you, and you will be able to set a filter for a view even without creating a special dedicated view in Woodford. Because typically you have a situation where you want to create a view just for that one situation, and don't use that view for any other situation, and this is how you will do it very quickly and easily without that. So it's available for associated views and for lookup views, and you can set up the filter directly on the form which contains the lookup or associated view. You can even use variables, so you can do some interesting filtering, like which we do is the primary contact lookup example. That's a typical example which I do on the trainings, and I have did it also on some different webinars to show you how a filtering works in Woodford. So how would you typically do that? Let's go into Woodford and let's check how that is done. But before that, I will have to restart Woodford and connect to a different server. So just a sec. Okay. So what a primary contact lookup example is actually, that's a typical example where on the accounts there is a field called primary contact. This one allows you to choose one of the contacts as the primary one. So let's create a new project called filtering project and select a system administrator. Open that project and go onto the account entity, onto the fields. There is the primary, let me see, that's called primary contact, like this. And now I have it enabled so I can place it on the form. Let's take it from here and put it somewhere on the top so I can access it quite easily. Okay, I will now publish the customization and show you what I have done in the mobile application. So let's switch to Resco Mobile CRM to the Windows 7 application, and let's change the server . Okay, and let's sync. Okay, so now on the accounts, on a bike store account, on the edit form, I have a primary contact field. And now when I click to select one of the contacts, you can see that all the contacts are here. All the contacts available in my demo data, they are here available as well. But if I go back onto the contact information form and check the contacts, there are 2 contacts already associated to this account, to a bike store. And when I go back to the edit form, it might make sense to only select from those 2 contacts. They are already associated to this account, so I want to select which of those 2 contacts is actually the primary one. And how I would approach this problem with the Woodford tool, before version 7.2. Let's switch to Woodford and let's talk about that. So before that, I would need to go onto the contacts, create a new view here, define the specific field there, and then go back to the accounts, to the form, and define the filter, define that view for the primary contact lookup. But not anymore. Right now all I have to do is click here, the primary contact. Here I have all the available views. Right now there is just one, but I can specify a filter just for this situation here on this form. So I will hit filter. I will add a condition that for that particular contact, the parent customer has to equal. And now for a little bit of magic, I will click here on set variable, which actually shows me all the ID fields, so all the lookups from an associated parent entity. So the form which is showing this lookup. And I will select account ID because that's exactly what I want. I want the contacts which are shown there on the form. I want to be only those contacts which have parent customer equal to the account ID of the current account. So that's how quickly I could do it. Just set the filter here on the form without the need to create an additional view in Woodford. Let's check if I did everything correctly. So I have published my customization and I will switch back to the mobile CRM application and sync. And when I open now the A-Bike Store account and click on the primary contacts, you can see that I can see only two contacts there, Alex Hankin, Herbert Dorner, so exactly those two which are associated here. Okay, I see that we are getting a bit low on time, so let me get back to the presentation. Okay, so now what I want to talk about is a feature built in directly into the application. So actually this one does not require any additional setup in Woodford. Just place a particular view on a form and this will be available. So it allows you to copy fields for sales entities. So basically if you are creating new opportunity out of a quote, new quote out of a new order, or new order out of the invoice, then you can, I said it vice versa, then you can copy the actual properties and they will be pre-filled in the opportunity. So for example, if you are creating new quote from an opportunity, then all the fields like the quote name, all the products will be pre-filled in that quote without doing anything extra. This relationship has to be enabled in Woodford, and when you are creating the new sales entity from the associated view, only in that scenario it will be used. I think it's best to show, so again I will switch quickly back to Woodford and set up that. So for example, let's say that we want to copy all the fields from opportunity, from quote in an order. So what I have to do, I have to go onto the fields, find the quote ID here, that's already selected. So I will go back onto the quote form here. I will open the form and I will add the orders list on this quote form. I will publish this customization and go back to the mobile application and sync. And right now, when I go into the quotes, select, for example, quote 2, Here you can see the products from this quote, and go into the orders and create a new order from there. You can see that already some fields are pre-filled. The customer is pre-filled, the name is pre-filled, currency, price list, and even the products, exactly the same products are pre-filled as they were on the quote. And as I said, this works on all the other entities as well. So quotes, orders, invoices, all these can be copied from the entity which is previously in the scenario in the sales. Okay, let me switch back to the presentation for the last feature I want to show today, and this one is the HTML5 charts. So what we did, we rewrite the charts, we have rewritten the charts using HTML5 for the latest version. They are slightly better looking, as you might have noticed if you have tried our application already. And there are also a couple of new features. I think the most interesting one is the one where you can click and disable or enable series or sections of pie chart. I will show you that in a sec. You can even zoom in and zoom out the chart. I'm not sure if I'm going to show you this on the Windows 7 application, but you can see that on the iPads. You can pinch zoom in and out. And even if the chart is larger than the portion which it belongs to on the screen, which was a problem for our previous versions, right now the large charts are displayed and you can zoom them and scroll them to see. Another interesting feature is, and I've realized this only when I talked to one of the attendees of a previous webinar, that the charts can be used also as a custom component. So basically, if you want to draw your own custom charts, you don't have to do it all by yourself. You can utilize these HTML5 charts, fill it with your custom data, and just display them. If you are interested in this particular feature, just let me know and I can send you an example of how that is done. So let's take a look at a quick demo of this. Again, I will switch to Woodford, but only to switch the projects. I will activate the project which I have prepared in advance and deactivate the one which we are using. And right now I will switch back to the mobile CRM application and sync. Okay, here we are. And I've set up the dashboard using the HTML5 charts. And now you can see that this looks maybe a slightly better than you are used to. And the first thing which you might notice is that I can click on these, on the actual series. And when I do that, you can see that this portion of the pie chart is removed and it only shows the remaining 3. I can even click out all of those or bring them back. The same applies for the charts which have multiple series. So if I want to disable this one, the first series, or the last one, the same for these two, it just works. Also, you might notice here that this chart is slightly larger than the portion of the screen which is available for that chart, and now scrolling is available. As I said, these charts can be used also as custom components in your offline HTML, and if you are interested in that, just let us know and we will send you some examples for that. Okay, that's everything for today. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope this was helpful for you and you have seen the best new features of our latest release 7.2. If you have any questions, just drop them on mobilecrm@resco.net. If you want a copy of this webinar or the presentation, just hit an email on mobilecrm@resco.net and we'll get back to you. Thank you very much once again, and see you next time with the next version and with the new features of that one. Thank you very much for watching.